So this is going to be a very swift presentation about the project. This is what this Zoom is for, as an introduction to the project. I'm going to talk about who I am, who the Plankton Project is, what plankton is, why it matters, why we need a citizen science project based around plankton, what's in it for science, what's in it for you potential volunteers, project structure overview, what you need to take part and what the Plankton Project can provide, and the sort of time commitments that you may be looking at, next steps, and then questions. Okay, so the Plankton Project is a community interest company. It's a not-for-profit social enterprise, and it was created to help citizen scientists, including myself, I am a citizen scientist, to survey plankton around the coast. I'm here in Norfolk, that's where I do my surveying, and to provide that data onto scientists via a national data repository. And also the other thing that we do is we do outreach for plankton, so to increase plankton literacy amongst the general public. And we are a member of the Marine Citizen Science Network as well. Me personally, I've been sampling plankton in Norfolk since 2022. Before that, I did surveys for shore search and sea search on the intertidal. I'm in the final year of my biology degree with the Open University, and I'm also a member of the Marine Biological Association, the Porcupine Marine Natural History Society, and Cricket Microscopical Society. I find that word very difficult to say, microscopical. Oh, yes, side note. So because I'm not going to have time to show you lots of lovely plankton, on each slide, I've put a little photograph of a different kind of plankton. So the sort of thing that you might see if you decided that you wanted to volunteer with the Plankton Project Citizen Science Scheme. So a lot of you will know, but some of you won't know about what plankton is or what are plankton. Organisms that drift. So basically any living organism, it can be freshwater or marine, we focus on marine, any organism that's pushed around by the water and cannot swim against the currents or the waves, that's what we're talking about. And that includes big things like jellyfish and tiny things like fungi and viruses. The Plankton Project concentrates sort of somewhere in the middle, the plankton that is pretty much too small to see with your naked eye, so you need a microscope to look at it. So organisms that drift. And why is plankton important? Well, it's absolutely essential. If any of you have been watching Evolution with Chris Packham on the BBC, even though he doesn't say the word plankton, plankton's referred to quite a lot. It's kind of where life started in the oceans. And it's important to us now because it provides lots of things called ecosystem services. It's an essential part, the beginning of most marine food webs. So without plankton, we wouldn't have any of the fishing industries. We wouldn't have the more charismatic species, you know, like whales and sharks and fish and turtles and so on. So absolutely essential for the food webs. They're also really an important part of nutrient cycling. So cycling different types of nutrients, like phosphorus, sulfur, silica, and some of them also produce oxygen. So a lot of the oxygen that's in the ocean that the ocean animals and algae need to breathe, and also they lock away carbon and take it to the bottom of the ocean as well. Other applications are science and industry, experiment and use different sorts of plankton for delivering medicines or for creating paints, dynamite, stabilizers, toothpaste, all sorts of different things. And they're also a great indicator of climate change and other anthropogenic influences, such as pollution, because a lot of plankton has a very short life cycle. It allows us to see changes in communities very quickly. And we have plankton that prefers certain conditions over other conditions, and that can tell us a lot about what's happening in the environment. The COP is there because plankton can actually be used to help solve crime. So I just like this fact. It's probably completely useless to anybody, but I like it. If someone drowns, the forensics teams can compare diatoms, a type of phytoplankton in the lungs of the drowning victim, and compare it to water bodies around the area and see if they can find a match of the community. So they also solve crime. So plankton's awesome. Okay, so why do we need a plankton citizen science project? Well, one of those big reasons is that there has been a reduction in professional, institutional, organized plankton sampling around the UK over the last few decades. There has been a big reduction. Sorry, I'm just looking at the thing. Yes, it's working for me. Kim, is this Zoom call working for anyone else? Try going out and coming back in again, Kim. Yeah, that's the only thing I can suggest, I'm afraid. Yeah, so there used to be a lot more plankton sampling, sort of near shore plankton sampling around the UK, but that has been reduced mainly due to sort of reductions in funding. So the reach and the frequency of that sampling has has been reduced. But we need the data. We need lots of lovely data to find out what's happening in our oceans for the plankton specifically, but also further up the trophic level. So because they're at the beginning of food webs, what happens to plankton will have a knock-on effect to other animals and fisheries and so on further up the trophic level. So we need that data. So we need it for monitoring and modeling. And then, of course, because of the very real thing that's happening with climate change at the moment, they're a great tool for mapping what's happening there. And of course, you know, the most important thing, so that the general public know about plankton and the importance of plankton, because you would be surprised how many people don't know what plankton is, what plankton does. It's not something generally that's taught in schools, so it's important that we try and get that information out there. So the benefits of a citizen science project focusing around plankton. So it's good for science. Why is it good for science? It's because with a citizen science scheme, we can provide a methodology that is of good quality. It's robust. So science gets good quality data that they can use. It means that they can get access to plankton data from places that perhaps they can't get to either on a regular basis or can't get to at all, just simply because they haven't got the finances or the people to be able to sample in those places. It's really important that we get regular sampling at the same places over time. That's really, really helpful data. And you, as a volunteer, if you decide to sign up, you are an expert of your local area. So, for example, when I go and sample at Chroma Pier, which is where I do my sampling, I can I can see what's happening. Are there some sea defence works going on? Is there a lot of people? Was there a festival the night before? Is the water turbid? Is there something, you know, your local knowledge is invaluable to contextualize the data that's collected about plankton. And what are the benefits for you? Of course, it's lovely that it can be very good for science, but it's got to be good for you as well. Otherwise, you're not going to want to get involved. So the benefits for you would be that you can learn new skills in scientific methods generally, but also specifically in the collection and identification of plankton, which I think is fabulous fun. You get to use your current skills. So if you're already using a microscope, for example, and you feel like you'd like to have some direction with that particular hobby, you can use that and you can use it for the power of good rather than evil. I hope nobody's using their microscope for evil at the moment. We will try and bring you back over to the good side. You get to meet like-minded people. So other people who like doing citizen science or like plankton or like oceans, you get to have a community with those people. Get you outside. I get to be at the seaside at least once a week. And I perhaps wouldn't do that if I didn't go and sample plankton. So it's a good way to get me outside. You get to experience a hidden world that nobody else really gets to see. So it does feel very special that you're kind of having an insight into this really kind of invisible world. And you get to feel smug and you get to feel good about contributing to science, conservation, and policy. So when you're at your dinner parties, you can say about how fabulous you are and how you're helping science and the world. So the Plankton Project's part in all this is a tool really. So we've got citizen scientists on one hand, and then the Plankton Project in the middle, which is going to provide all of the training and the resources and the information, the methodology, quality assurance, that kind of thing. Um, we're going to bring all of that together and then pass the data on to DASH, which is the Marine Biological Association's data repository for marine survey information. So we're going to be the center part of those two ends. Now, this looks a bit complicated, but it will make sense eventually, I promise. So the way that the scheme is set up is that we have two types of analysis. One takes longer than the other. Plankton observers will basically be people looking at plankton and ticking off what is present. Is presence absence. So, okay, I'm looking down a microscope. I can see there's a copepod, tick. I can see that there is a polychaete larva, tick. I can see that there's a tick. Right, there aren't any barnacle larva, so I'm not going to tick that today, so on and so forth. And then the plankton surveyors, a little bit more complicated because there's actually going to be some counting going on. So it takes a bit more time. So it's a little bit more in depth, but some people like that. I like to categorize and count, but I might be a little bit weird. So yeah, so that would be a matter of, okay, I see that there are copepods in this sample. I am now going to extract them and count them at the same time. There is one, there is two, there is three, there is four, creating a tally, and so on. Both sets of information are really useful. The levels are the resolution at which we are identifying organisms. So level one, which is probably where most people will start unless you've got previous experience of identifying plankton, is life form levels. There's actually quite a lot of life forms, but they are general groups which are very useful for scientists to know about. So in those groups, you would include copepods, bristleworm larvae, gastropod, sort of sea snail larvae, arrow worms, these sort of general large groups. And then level two, you would be identifying at a slightly higher resolution. So maybe you would be looking at bristleworms, but you'd know what family they were from. Okay, so I've got Spionidae worms in this particular sample. So you're breaking it down a little bit. And then level three is going to be the highest resolution. Not all things, you can't get all things to species. For example, gastropod larva, sea snail larva. I can't get them to species at the point that they are in the larval stage, so they remain as gastropod larvae. But there are other things like species of diatoms that you can get down to species level, and obviously the higher the resolution, the more interesting that data can become. But it's still really valuable at the life form level, and even just saying tick, 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 these things are here. But it means that if you get involved, you don't have to stay at one level. You can progress your skill level if you wish. So the data that's collected will come to the Plankton Project, where it'll be verified, just to make sure that the organisms that you are recording are the correct organisms, put all together and then sent on to DASH. So what do you need to take part? So this is the bit that some people might say, okay, I'm out. I can't, commit to that because it does require certain bits of equipment. The Plankton Project can provide you with, for free, training in how to use Plankton Net, how to analyze plankton and how to identify plankton. Nick, I can see that. Yes, we will be providing resources for identification and indeed workshops as well. We're going to be providing a community. So we're having an online project community space built as we speak, where we can come together, we can throw mysteries out and say, anybody know what this thing is? And we'll have experts that will be able to say, yes, I know what that is. And we can talk about our process. We're also going to have, as I said, resources to help with identification, both online and as workshops. And we're going to do some rewards as well. Observation of the month, surveyor of the year, that kind of thing. And if you're doing the surveyor type of analysis, you'll be provided with a few extra things just to help with the counting of phytoplankton in particular. And also, your data will be visualized on the Plankton Project website. So we'll have a nice map and we'll be able to see where people are sampling and what sorts of things you're finding. So what do you need to take part? What are the things that we can't provide? Unfortunately, we cannot provide plankton nets and microscopes. We just simply don't have the budget. Some of you may already have microscopes, which is great. Some of you may not. I'll start with plankton nets. I am going to purchase about 6 plankton nets, which will be available for short-term loan. So there may be a postage cost involved. So, for example, if you wanted to sample 4 times a year or something, you could borrow a plankton net for those particular occasions and then post it back, and then I can lend it out to other people. Microscopes, we don't have any microscopes we can loan out at the moment. Hopefully this would change at some point, but I can definitely help you either find a microscope to purchase or see if we can find some organizations that be willing to let you have time on their microscopes. So, for example, I'm in touch with the wildlife trusts at the moment, and I'm going to see which one of those coastal trusts have microscopes and whether or not they'd be willing to let participants use them. So if you don't have a plankton net or a microscope, you're not completely dead in the water, as it were. Just get in touch if you still really want to get involved, and we can see what we can do to help you with that. You do need a way of taking photographs of the organisms that you see. I use a mobile phone attached to an adapter. Other people use sort of more fancy systems, but it's just so that at verification stage, we can say with confidence, yes, you identified that correctly as a copepod. It is indeed a copepod. I can see that it is a copepod. All the bits that come with microscopes, they're generally quite cheap: slides, pipettes, petri dishes, that sort of thing. And then there are a few extra bits and bobs, which I'll show on the next slide, which help with the sampling methodology of which you will be trained in and provided with. You're not just sort of left on your own to do it. The kind of the extra bits for sampling, I've sort of said at the bottom, if enough people kind of say, look, I need all of those things, I could probably buy them in bulk and then put together little kind of packages at cost to save you some money and some time. But we'll talk about that later. Okay, so here is my sampling kit. So obviously the microscope isn't here, but this is the stuff that I use to collect plankton. We've got here the plankton net, we've got a little bucket, a thermometer and a salinity meter, which is an optional thing that you can do. And it's little things that you might not automatically think of, but sort of weights that you can put on the bottom of the plankton net, or extra rope if you're sampling like me from a pier and there's quite a long drop down to the water's surface, a cool bag to keep your sample nice and cool on the way home, and so on. So there's sort of lots of bits, not too expensive little bits and bobs to add to your plankton kit. Okay, so where and when, what sort of time commitment? I'll go to the last point first. Basically, sampling and surveying plankton at any time, in any place, is helpful. It really is. So, don't worry if you feel like you can't commit to some kind of sampling schedule. Because I'm a complete nerd, I sample every week, but I don't expect everybody to do that. The best kind of data, scientists are telling us that the best kind of data is samples that have been collected in the same place regularly over a long period of time. So that's kind of golden standard. And by regularly, I mean once a month or twice a month, or if you're completely nerdy like me, once a week. Less regularly is fine. So sort of down from that, sampling at the same location at the same time of year. So if, for example, you could only commit to doing 2 samples a year, that's absolutely fine. The best way to do that would be around the same time each year over the years, and then we can see how the plankton community changes over time. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. Okay, so next steps. You've already nailed the introductory Zoom meeting. Well done, everybody. If you are still interested in taking part, if you haven't been put off by my ramblings and the sheer amount of information I've just thrown at you, please do send me an email, and then we can set up a one-to-one so we can have a chat on Zoom or over the phone or via email. talk about where you are, what you need, and how we can help get you started. Um, Once the community space is up online, you can join that and we can start communicating with each other. Of course, there'll be a sampling workshop. I'm thinking probably it will be a video actually, because I don't expect you all to come to Norfolk. That's a rather long way to come. So if I can, if I'll do it as a video, then hopefully that will be enough information for you to be able to get started. If you already have a plankton net or you're experimenting with making your own plankton net, the best thing you can do right now is get out there, get sampling, and just getting to know it. So before you even start surveying and start noting what's there or what's not, just looking at it and kind of learning, what different things are or how different things move. And it's just a really great way of getting yourself familiar with what you're going to be looking at. Then you'll have to decide whether or not you want to be a plankton observer, so going present, absent, absent, or if you want to be a surveyor, which is the counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you all know how to count. And then there will be relevant workshops for whichever method of analysis that you choose to do. But yes, it will all be covered. Worry not, you will not be left alone. Okay, so next steps are, if you're interested in taking part, email me so we can do the chat.